AGI is today's moon artist, and the race is all these different labs. OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepMind, they're full throttle trying to reach it, and whomever gets there first, that's the price.
Hello, welcome to Generation AI, where we demystify artificial intelligence in the world of higher education. I'm your host, Artis Kadu, and with me today is my co-host, JC Bonilla. Hey, JC.
Hi, Artis. How are you? Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too. I'm host Knicks losing series. Just a little bit bummed about that, but other than that, it's all good. How's it going in New York?
You and I had never had a conversation. I mean, not surprised you're a Knicks fan. Obviously, you're a New Yorker, right? Yeah, it's, when you grow up from a foreign country, right, you have an embeddedment towards the local teams there. So it's hard for me to become a New York Knicks fan or Islanders or Nets, right? But when a local team is in a final or semifinals or towards the tail end of a tournament, I am their biggest fan. So I'm heartbroken, right? Although I see myself more a Chicago Bulls fan. 1990s Michael Jordan influence. Impossible not to have it as a 15-year-old kid. But back then, the Knicks had a true chance. And was it game 2? It was just a heartbreak, right? That's when it happened.
Game 1, yes.
Game one. That last... that minute where, I don't know, how many points were scored in that minute from both teams? What is happening? Is this an ESPN podcast, Artis? What is happening here?
It is not an ESPN. I just figured I'd bring it up. It was,
oh my God.
It was very timely. It's very timely because the last time that the Knicks, it's been 25 years, and the last time that the Knicks were good, or at least went this far, it was 25 years ago, and that was the time that I actually moved to the U.S. It was 99, 2000, and I remember the Knicks being really, really good with Allen Houston and a bunch of the other. So it was really, really good.
Ewan, John Stark, all that.
That's right. Yeah. So I remember that. But then enough about that. 25 years. I mean, it's a long time. It's a quarter century.
By the way, good luck connecting this sports, NBA, New York, to today's conversation. So hard pivot. What are we talking about today?
Look, today we're really talking about what might be the most important conversation that
not the
nobody's
Knicks.
having.
Not the Knicks.
We're going to talk about what happens when AI becomes as smart as humans, or smarter at basically everything.
This is AGI.
It's AGI, right? So if you're thinking, you might have heard the term or you might have heard about it, but if you're thinking that it's artificial general intelligence, if you're thinking it's decades away, you're in for a shock. And if you work in education, really this conversation is about to become very personal very, very quickly for us as we were kind of going back and forth before we started recording. So we're going to start with why you should care and why you should care right now. So we're going to go through, provide you context, what AGI is and why it matters today. We're going to go and talk a little bit about what specifically AGI stands for and how is it different, right, from just pure AI. And we're going to talk about the timeline. So what we're seeing in the timeline. And then we're going to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about the impact that it has to the knowledge economy specifically, and of course, education as well. So we're going to talk about what is the role of education in that AGI when learning and knowledge and capabilities need to what's their role from humans. And then what happens, we're going to just explore what happens in the next 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years, and we'll provide some perspectives around that. How's that sound?
Oh, it sounds fantastic. I just want to give a note and disclosure to our listeners that many leaders take the path of AGI, and you as an AI leader, me as an AI leader, we haven't done that. So this is a big one for us personally, right? Especially you who did all the research leading to our big presentation. Our claims and our hypothesis and what this conversation is here, it's part listening signals, part convictions, part human, right? So we tend not to do a lot of that in these podcasts of ours. We try to be less speculatively, more centered on the data and what we see here. But here's not only a leap of faith, but I think the part I appreciate as you unpack this, and I'm going to let you drive, it's truly how do you read the tea leaves today, artist Kadui? How do I react to those as it relates to this movement that is coming and is upon us, AGI? So with that, what is AGI, my friend?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, if you some context here, for most of human history, there's just really been one constant, right? And humans were the only entities capable of general intelligence. And really that means that they could learn, they could adapt, they can create and solve problems across a lot of different domains. And when we thought about technology, it was just a tool, and technology in the sense of, from sticks and fire and so on and so forth to actually, silicon technology and kind of digital technology and machines. So they were just tools, but powerful tools. But, they were able to do very specific tasks. But that's really changing very fast today. And what we're seeing is that the introduction of ChatGPT and how fast, this different type of AI is coming on board, and how fast it, is being adopted by everybody. So within 5 days, ChatGPT had 1 million users. By 2025, like where we are today, by the middle of 2025, it actually has 800 million weekly active users, and that's the fastest adoption of any technology in human history, faster than the internet, faster than, of course, smartphones, and even social media. Remember how we talked about Facebook kind of being like fire across university campuses. AI and ChatGPT is growing a lot faster than that. But ChatGPT, as we call it today, is really what we call narrow AI. Some folks might basically go back to the definition of AGI and say some can even call it AGI based on definitions from the 50s and 60s, right? When kind of the field became what it is, and kind of the field evolved to be called artificial intelligence, right? This is so what if somebody from the 50s and 60s would have seen ChatGPT, in 2023, and they would have called it AGI at that point, right? But it's still narrow AI, right? And it's incredible at language tasks, but it can't really drive a car. It can't diagnose diseases or compose symphonies, and maybe even just run a business, right? Or be a CEO. It's like, think about it as like having a brilliant writer who can't do math, right? It's very narrow in the terms of what he can do. So now what we've seen is that folks from a lot of these labs, and particularly Sam Altman, which is one of the most vocal and probably one of the labs that's the most advanced, he's the CEO of OpenAI. We've talked a lot about that here. But earlier this year, maybe a couple of months ago, he wrote, and we talked about this a little bit, he wrote an essay. And in that, he basically wrote that we're now confident we know how to build AGI as we have traditionally understood it. So think about that. He's basically, running a lab whose mission is to build AGI, and now he's proclaiming to the world that we now know how to build AGI as we have traditionally understood it. So that's a lot of implications here. It means that, there is no unknowns, or there is no known unknowns. So like all of those things are now, there's a path to what that means, and the timing of that is very different. So when you think about it, AGI, standing for artificial general intelligence, think about that as the Swiss Army knife compared to today's single blade AI tools. So that's a comparison. That's a mental mindset. So it's like today we have narrow AI, which is very good at single tasks, but artificial general intelligence is going to be able to do a lot of different things, a lot of across multiple different kind of industries, right? Or across multiple domains. So I'll go in and kind of explain what that means, and every person obviously listening to this show, especially if you work in education, like we really need to understand this shift, right? This shift from narrow AI, single tasks, and as a co-pilot, to the ability for these AIs to generalize and solve problems across different domains and become smarter than humans.
So before you jump into what it is and give it more color, right? So My takeaway on our context and section is everybody, AGI is no longer a hypothesis or an aspiration. It's something that has shifted. It has shifted on what if to what now, and the data that is presented here, the advancements on labs, whether it's coming from OpenAI or thinking from leaders, right? It's not a revolution. It's really the ignition towards that. And as we unpack, my takeaways for everybody is whether you're an education leader, policymaker, a fan of artists and JC, doesn't matter, right? Don't start thinking about when is the perfect time to jump in. It's just start building and adapting to the strategies now, because the message today is it's upon us, and we're looking at the tea leaves. So let's start unpacking what it is, how is it different. But that's a bit of my message and my recap.
All right. So look, we're going to use a lot of analogies in here as we talk about AI or AGI specifically, and I'm going to use another one. Think about another comparison, right? So think about the difference between a specialist doctor and maybe a Renaissance genius like Leonardo da Vinci. And I didn't come up with this, right? So this was, again, AI, but it's really good at doing that. So the specialist might be the world's best heart surgeon, but ask them to paint the Mona Lisa, design a helicopter, and study anatomy, and they're really lost, right?
Of course.
So that's kind of Da Vinci could do all that and more. So he was able to think across multiple domains, understand problems across multiple domains, and reason about and solve problems across multiple domains. So we're talking about specialist here. And so that's kind of the way, you can think about it. So currently AI is like that specialist doctor. So we have AI that can, beat any human at chess or Go or any of the other games, but he can't play checkers, for example, right? Well, chess, right? So he can be really, really good at chess, but he can't play checkers. Or so it's like it's really defined and is very narrow. We have AI that can identify cancer in medical images better than a radiologist, but he can't have a conversation about the patient's fears. So it's like he can't, do that, right? And then we have AI that can write code, but he can't understand why the client wants the software in the first place, which is that's another, kind of comparison there. So when you think about AGI, right, AGI would be like like Da Vinci. So, but potentially much more capable, and it could learn any new skill or domain without being specifically trained on it. So he doesn't have to be trained on a new domain or understand new concepts. He can kind of learn that, and he can kind of absorb and do those new skills. Transfer knowledge from one area to another, meaning this is very important. So AGI can kind of take concepts from one knowledge area on one domain and then transfer them to another. And this is potentially the area where the most kind of scientific discoveries are probably going to come from, as new methods and kind of new ideas kind of cross over domains. And we've seen that over and over again, that's how that stuff comes about. It can solve problems that it's never seen before. So it doesn't have to be in the training set. It can actually reason and think about those problems, and it can solve those problems just by the smarts. He has context, he has, all the data, and he can kind of reason through that. Create genuinely new ideas, not just recombine existing ones. LLMs today and where AI is today, it can't create new ideas, right? It can just basically regurgitate what it has or reason about some things, but it can't really do scientific discovery. And then understand context, nuance, and purpose. And that's really, really important.
Hey, artists, I really like your example, your narrative here. I think it lands in the idea of the specialized surgeon, right, where this Renaissance figure, Da Vinci. It's a great example. What I'm hearing from you is AGI isn't just a smarter tool. It's a new dimension in how we work, think, and relate with intelligence, right? Not augmentation. It's like this emergence of the peer to the next level. Learns, reasons, adapts across domains, and that part across domains is so important. Your example of chess and checkers, or open heart surgery versus painting a heart, totally different domain. So I really like it, and I just want to say it lands really well. I'm wondering in your research how the people define AGI.
So, I mean, when you think about OpenAI, so it defines AGI as a highly autonomous system that outperforms humans at most economically valuable work. So this is really interesting because
So grounded in economic theory, huh?
exactly, exactly. So it's all about like the knowledge work and where our society is, and essentially doing productive work. And that's really the one of the differences here, which is interesting because how are you going to measure if AI is smarter or not? It's actually going to produce meaningful, economically valuable work for society, and that's how they're measuring. But the other CEO of Google DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, he's also one of the leading researchers. He sets an even higher bar, though, right? Whereas OpenAI has kind of a gradient scale, and we talked about this before, where they have kind of this 5 different stages to AGI. Hassabis says that AGI should be able to do what Einstein did, make fundamental scientific discoveries that reshape our understanding of the universe. So, I mean, either way, we're talking about machines that don't just like, they're not your co-pilot, or they're just not assisting our intelligence. They really are much better and exceeding it across the board, right? So it doesn't matter if you're going with the OpenAI definition, which is more rooted in practically in economic output, or you're thinking about the intelligence of new ideas and new scientific discovery. You still have that gate to pass through.
So the picture here as it relates to AI and what AGI is, right? AGI is not a better calculator. It just doesn't automate tasks, right? It really understands purpose, transfers knowledge, and solves problems. It's never seen. That Einstein alike, Da Vinci alike, right? And when machines can match Einstein's scientific leaps, I mean, we're just not talking about efficiency here. We're really talking about rewriting reality, artists, right?
Rewriting reality. You're talking like magic right now. So it's like it's intelligence, right? It's think about it as intelligence. It's like how good are these models? Like you ask ChatGPT a question, it's able to give you back an answer. Maybe sometimes he reasons about it a little bit and thinks through and says, "Oh, let me think about it. Let me see what they're asking and how should I respond back?" And it has all of these, neural networks behind it. What we're talking about is intelligence that is 10, 20, 100 times, a million times much more nuanced and intelligent that ChatGPT and where it is right now, where it's actually able to go back and spend hours and days thinking and digest the information and going in different directions and then producing something that is novel that he hasn't seen before, or the world hasn't seen before. So that's what we're talking about, JC. We're not just talking like, hey, again, I really like OpenAI's definition because it's really concrete in terms of what it delivers. But we're not talking about this hypothetical, is it smart like this or is it smart like that, right? So you can come up with a lot of tests, and those tests and suite of tests are getting crushed every single time a new model comes in. So now we have to come up with better and better, more intelligent tests around it as well.
If I could just go emotional for 2 minutes, right? And back to my point, rewriting reality. You know me, I'm always looking for analogies in history. It looks like this. I just cannot map this out for the past 2,000 years of history that I know, artists. So the only time I see this intelligence taking that leap that transforms society, aka a reality, I mean, the close analogy I find is when our ancestors were on caves and the Homo sapiens discovers fire and all those type of things, and that new reality starts putting people in a different hierarchical chain in the roles of the human and the in gender and the family, all those kind of things start being shaped, and urban societies emerge. I know this is a gigantic leap, but this is why I think AGI is very interesting, because at that level of output that is beyond intelligence, beyond the Swiss knife, the automation task, and you find this kind of ultimate purpose and transfer knowledge and problem solving, It's really, really exciting and very, very nuanced. Anyway, I close my emotional chapter, so you can go back to more of your research, my friend.
JC, what's going on? Yeah, exactly. You're like you're thinking. You're very pensive today. You're thinking about this a lot.
You put this, you put the work here, and as I said before in the beginning, not every leader has thought about what it means, and sometimes we consume it. So this is the first time I actually have to force myself to all right, where is AGI meeting the Bonilla brain? So here we are. Anyway,
Yeah. And to make you even more uncomfortable or more thinking, it's think about the timeline, and this is where things get a lot more interesting. I said that, hey, Sam Altman says we know what we can do there, but the other part, it's like what's there's no consensus with people, right? So
of course.
some say like with the timelines are kind of crazy, but the people that we just talked about, Sam Altman, Demis Hassabis, Dario Amodei from Anthropic. Like Sam basically said that he believes that AGI will probably be developed during this US presidential term. So we're literally talking about 2029 here, right?
4 years. I mean that
Yeah, which
is
is crazy.
with the construct that it's AGI as a highly autonomous system that outperforms humans at most economical valuable work. So in 4 years,
Right, exactly. It can do all of our jobs
it's
basically.
is the AGI peering economical output in those type of things. Okay,
Yep.
4 years. Oof. Oh my gosh. Keep on
Jeez.
going,
Yes.
please. please, please tell me you're going to stretch the timelines. You're not going to make them closer.
It's yeah. I mean, five. He says 5 to 10 years, and he's considered well, but he considers that to be pessimistic. So meaning that
Jesus.
if things don't go right, it's going to take 5 to 10 years, but most likely,
His rubric is higher, in my opinion. An OpenAI Altman version of AGI versus the Miz the bar is higher. Still 5 to 10 years pessimistic. Jesus Christ, it's I don't know what to think of that.
yeah. And then when you think about Dario Amodei, like we talked to CEO of Anthropic, he's basically said like he's accelerated even further, and he said wouldn't be surprised if AI systems outsmart humans by 2026, and that's next year.
On brand. We spoke about this. I believe that
Yeah.
Amode just basically it's doing a good play of both, getting the attention eyeballs through hyperbole, and of course building these things behind the scenes. But this one I'm not gonna take.
Yeah, but I do have so here's the thing. You can consider these to be like very wild
Self-serving.
predictions, self-serving,
Hmm.
but by excited tech CEOs, but there was a survey in 2024 of 2,778 AI researchers. It was the largest ever conducted. And they found that the median prediction for 50% chance of AGI was 2047. So
Okay, 22
22
years.
years from
22 years.
22 years from now. So we're still within our time frame. But what we've seen since that survey, since last year to this year, it's been incredible. But even again, like this things get crazy. So what's the truth, right? Nobody really knows for sure. But here's kind of what we know. And maybe this kind of puts it into perspective a little bit. The amount of compute used to train AI models is growing 10 times every year. Think about that. Every single year, the amount of compute. So like every year, that's a exponential curve. So 10 times, it's think about like now it's 100, 2 years ago it was 1, last year was 10, this year is 100. So imagine next year is going to be 1,000. So you can see how fast by having all this compute you can get to a place where you can get that they're really really smart. So and the cost of running these models has dropped by 99.7 in just 2 years, which is incredible. So you think about the speed of how capable they are, think about the economics behind them as well. It's like they're getting bigger and bigger, they're getting faster and faster, and the cost is dropping tremendously. And these tech companies, they're spending 212 billion on AI infrastructure in 2024 alone, and they have hundreds or even trillions of dollars over the next couple of years set. Like, I don't know if you have followed a lot of the, investments that, or the data center buildups that are happening. So when you see the kind of money and momentum combined with like the breakthrough after breakthrough, look, even if you're a skeptic, like you're not thinking 2047, you're thinking 2030 at the latest, right? And kind of revising that timeline downward.
So here are my takes. First, on the most pessimistic prediction here, right? That 27 years from now, I'm sorry, 22 years from now from the researchers. That survey was conducted in 2024.
Before,
And
yep.
in that research, we see that 13 years earlier, right? They even thought this was basically going to be even longer, right? So the time compression and the prediction from them 2025 is very different when it comes to AI to 2024 artists. So if I want to say whatever these 2000 and something researchers, they probably have a different opinion that it's not 22 years from now, whatever that number is.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the point that we're not decades away from here. We're months, 24 months, 48 months. We're months away from achieving
From having that intelligence. Yeah.
from having this type of super intelligence. And sure, there's going to be skeptics like LeCun and other incredible thinking figures that would say, probably that problem is never going to be solved, right? But the progress, and even there's counter arguments, we know that something really, really unique and special is cooking up. So takeaways, wherever you are listening from, an academic institution, a leader, right? If you're still planning, let's talk about the AGI definition from OpenAI through the economic lens. So operationally speaking, if you're still planning in 5 to 10 year timelines, you're literally caught out of flat-footed. The world in 5 years from now to 10 years from now is different. Simple, right? And if the moon was the prize in the 1960s, right? AGI is today's moon artist, and the race is all these different labs, OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepMind. They're full throttle trying to reach it, and whomever gets there first, that's the prize.
Exactly. But look, I mean, like, what does this mean for knowledge economy, right? It's because there's a little hyperbole here. Yes, we got the timeline. Yes, we now folks know what it is and how you quantify it and how you think about it. But let's be practical here. Like, what happens to human work when machines can think? So it's like we're in a knowledge economy right now. So I don't go outside. I don't use physical labor. It's all about the knowledge output that I work in front of a computer all day, and I talk to people, I plan, I code, I produce stuff, and it's a knowledge economy. So a recent study by OpenAI and the University of Pennsylvania found something like that 80% of the US workforce could have at least 10% of their work tasks affected by AI language models. So that's about 19% of workers may see half or more of their tasks impacted. So literally, like, this is research that's being done, right? That was done, prior. However, even with AGI going forward, this is going to accelerate. And the part that should make everybody pause, it's the impact spans all wage levels and education levels. So it's not just factory workers or data entry clerks. Although factory workers are probably, they're going to be affected by the automation or robotics, which is the next wave, but that's further away. But it's lawyers, doctors, professors, engineers, artists, and executives, which is all about creative and knowledge work. And we're already seeing this play out today, right? Think about OpenAI released Codex the other day, and now we can go ahead and build a feature for you. We used Lovable before. We have Cursor, AI coding assistants. It's used by so many people, and it's one of the fastest kind of application or copilots or AI powered tools. Law firms are using AI to draft contracts and analyze documents. Architects are using AI to generate design options. Think about journalists, they're using AI to write first drafts and analyze data. Financial analysts are using AI for market research and predictions. So I heard a report the other day that McKinsey, they actually cut like 10% of their workforce, but essentially they're using AI now to do all of the research and all of the presentation drafting, all their presentations that interns or even low entry associates were doing. Now it's all kind of transitioned to AI, which is really, really interesting, right? So this is, that's narrow AI, right? Like it's not now. Imagine AGI where you have the systems that can they're not just assisting with these tasks, but they can do them entirely, right? They can think for a really long time, and we're starting to see some of those systems, like where you have this agents that are reasoning about and thinking, but the intelligence is not quite there. Like they can't go on forever and do this task. Like we still have to put them together. And again, these AIs can take all these tasks entirely. They can manage projects. They can communicate with clients. They can make strategic decisions. And when you think about it from an optimistic view, like you think about like, well, it's going to take humans from the drudgery and let them focus on higher level work. And you think about AGI could really increase the world's GDP by an order of magnitude, right? According to some predictions. So as it does those things, it actually can remove a lot of the low entry, but because of the speed of it, we're seeing the effect on those jobs and we're seeing the effect on society. However, it is going to produce a lot. It's going to increase the world's GDP by a large magnitude. But when you think about it from a pessimistic perspective, it's like, again, we talked about just mass unemployment and inequity. So if AGI can do the job better, faster, and cheaper, like why would anyone hire you? So you have the optimistic view, which is GDP growth by order of magnitude, and you have pessimistic view, which is, well, if AGI can do it better. So we're kind of seeing a little bit of both of that, where companies are growing faster and they're having much more revenue per employee, and that's the productivity part there. But we're also seeing that the skills and the low entry level jobs are kind of moving away because AI can do those so much better, right? So and the reality is somewhere in between there. Like you don't have that. The transition can really be rocky here.
The white collar job, right? As we know in law, medicine, architecture, journalism, engineering, that's ground zero for AGI to do what AGI it's going to be doing and what we think it's going to be doing. I find that to be humbling. I find it to be exciting and scary. Simply, right? I think that the promise of increasing global GDP so scary and exciting. I believe in a world of providence. I believe a world of, we need to be able to do more with resources. I'm really excited about how we're going to be solving those problems. I really wonder what happens with the new definition that AGI brings to kind of what is a developed country and not. And it'll be very interesting to observe the wedge that AGI cuts on GDP as it relates to I'm a third world country, or I'm a developed country, or I'm a advanced nation. And I really believe that advancement in AGI would probably start creating the shifts. And I used to be a third world country. Now I'm not a third world country or a developing country, and things like that. So it's really, really interesting. But definitely those shifts are going to be seen.
Yeah. So now let's just really get to the heart of like why we even wanted to have this conversation.
It's only taken us 38 minutes
to get to the education part, right?
There's a lot to cover here.
Yeah.
That's why.
So look, exactly. So we want to provide that context because this is being built in the larger context of society and kind of what's happening in the knowledge work. But so if AGI fundamentally changes what humans need to know and do, like what happens to education? So universities and colleges, right? They've thrived for nearly thousands of years as kind of institutions. And they really, like, if you think about it, there's three core pure propositions for them. Basically, like where the value is in universities and like what they have shown the value. So number one, you think about transferring knowledge from experts to students. I mean, we know that that's something that like institutions are set up for that, and that's really what you go there, you learn the apprenticeship model. You have an expert, you have a student. That's the oldest one.
In artists to that point, right? Remember, it's transferring the knowledge and sometimes even creating the knowledge, right? The research model and things like that. But it is all encompassing with transferring the knowledge or creating the knowledge and how it gets passed down the chain of knowledge, right? Peer students, mentors, whatnot.
Exactly. So you have expert, and then you have, the student. So number two, it's about certifying competence through degrees. So essentially, they're a certification and an approval or a standardization, a standard setting value prop in there. So they're issuing degrees, they're issuing certifications, and basically those credentials. I now know that because you went to this school and that's the degree that you got, I understand that there is a certain level of competency and that you have in that area. So that's they're certifying that.
Correct. I always define this as the union card, and it's an important value proposition that they bring, right? So if I am an engineer because someone's telling you I'm an engineer, and that's called a diploma and whatnot. What's the third one?
So the third one is really providing community and networks. So this is the part where you're probably like, oh yeah, of course. So universities and colleges have been a place to provide essentially connecting with other people, providing community and connecting in your network. We know that a lot of folks that go to college, like they meet their future friends there, their future business partners, just like we
My
did, right? That was
wife,
the
my friends, my
yeah,
boss.
exactly. But
Community network is so important, right? And
right,
the socializing aspect, gigantic value proposition. We all know it. We pay for it in a way.
exactly. But the problem is that AGI really breaks the first two. So when AI can instantly access all human knowledge and explain it perfectly in any language at any level for free, like what's there to do around like what's the lecture for or what's the knowledge transfer for? So that gets broken down. That's the first one, the knowledge transfer from experts to students. And then when AI can demonstrate competence at any task better than a human with a degree, like why do you need a diploma anymore? What's the diploma for? So you see like how it breaks those first two value propositions.
Of course, I mean, artists, and everybody listening, let's go back to college. How many bad lectures, how many bad teachers do we all experience, right? It's a reality that teaching quality, many of our teachers did not go to school to be teachers. They're just experts, right? And something that AI is going to do much better is it's knowing how better human knowledge transfer is done and facilitate that. So yeah, the value of the lecture, it's mind blowing. As it relates to the diploma, I have to think more about that one, artist. It's really interesting that this unique interest and value of the university as a diploma certifiable union card could be discounted in the value that gets diminished because I would trust AI to do a better assessment of my skills than.
But it's not only that. I don't need your skills. Basically, because AI can do that job better, then I don't need you to do that to that job or that particular skill. So the diploma is no longer relevant for the work economy. So it really breaks those two, right? And look, I mean, man, it's a punch in the gut, but I don't know. And every educator and everybody needs to grapple with it. And we're seeing kind of the stages of grief that we're going through as ChatGPT gets introduced, to academia. It was like it's anger, it's acceptance, it's denial, it's all the stages of grief, so to speak, we're going through in academia, and you see that, and we're seeing like you saw where if you think about just even 2 years back, you saw Chegg, right? I don't know if you remember Chegg, or I don't know if you've used it, but it's really an online tutoring company. So Chegg, when ChatGPT was introduced, I was at ASU GSV, and they made a big deal about how they're going to, build things with AI. But essentially, they were built for like it's an online tutoring company, and they saw their stock price like crater really that they plummeted after students really starting to use ChatGPT, and they could go to it and it's like, hey, it's a much better, teacher than all of the information that. So coding boot camps, like they're struggling as AI makes this really programming and code vibing. You know what I mean? Like it makes those so much more accessible. And when you think about even MBA programs are questioning their value prop because AI is handling this more strategic analysis. To be honest, I have, as we look at companies and as we look at, here at Element, in the past, I would have said, like I'm not really qualified to do analysis, a financial analysis on a company's P&L or customer data or any of that. And it's like, well, like we want to, like if we want to do partnerships or acquisitions and things like that, like how do we think about this? Well, AI has actually allowed me to do a lot of those things, and now because I can ask the right questions and I can put the right prompts together, and I don't need a financial analyst to kind of go through and give me all that, because I can ask the right questions. So the idea here is why would you even need an MBA? So those entry level jobs or that capability goes away. But look, it's not all doom and gloom though, right?
Well, that's my question. So, don't transfer and credentialing's bedrock of higher education is kind of the first thing that AGI will disrupt. That sounds very doom. Any path forward here? I mean, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's now we're going to like the prophesizing a little bit and giving a little bit of insight of like our perspective, or at least kind of this perspective that is coming from those who are thinking deeply about this, and of course doing some of the research here, and I put things together that I kind of agree with. But like think about three options, like human edge college. So double down on AI, what AI can do. So focus on mentorship, emotional intelligence, ethics, creativity, and human connection. Think small seminars, not massive lectures, apprenticeships, not assignments. So kind of this human, you know what I mean? Like this, where the human edge is over AI, like basically the areas that humans are better. Like if we double down on that part of it, AI is not going to get there, and because we're social creatures, like we're always going to want that part of it. So doubling down on that third part of that community and networks, and kind of making it more about that.
Bring the social component. Oh, I mean, it's logical, right? I see some issues. First, it's logical. Why? Because from the pedagogy point of view, we're looking for a way to make this content land, this knowledge being transferred, and if you get that in super intelligence to assist you, so yeah, the what remains is human, right? And the things that you mentioned here is how, from a pedagogy in years of practice and story, we know that history, we know that this is how it works. So it makes a lot of sense. The only counter I would say is majority, if not large majority of experts, aka faculty, don't have this, right? So as we think about the human edge college, right, it introduces a new phase of the professor, and I think that's a really fascinating picture on campus. So what's option number two?
Well, I mean, so you think about the research part, and you mentioned this before, that a lot of this knowledge is being created at universities, but think about the research steward kind of position here. So become the ethical guardians or the ethical stewards, and guide AGI development, right? So of course, like a lot of this research is getting done in these labs, but still university have something that tech companies don't, which is independence from profit motives and deep interdisciplinary expertise. So they're going to focus on the things that are better for society versus, you know what I mean? Like I know OpenAI just went through the whole push and pull of non-for-profit, corporation versus for-profit, and the whole battle played out in public. But universities don't have that mandate, so they don't have shareholders. They don't need to kind of do that, so they can focus on the societal and the stewardship component. And of course, they have this cross-discipline experts in there, so they have different fields, and so they could lead the conversation on how we develop and deploy AGI safely and beneficially. So not necessarily building it, but the deployment part can be coming from universities, and that's the research university job, or like how they use AI to essentially build all the new areas of research, and kind of the discoveries that are being made. Maybe they need to play that role as the stewards of that, rather than that stuff being left to corporations or to companies. Is that going to be possible? I'm not sure, but I feel like that's a really good plan.
Of course, it's logical, right? Because there's the space where universities have thrived specifically research intensive universities, it's the translation from research, pursuit of knowledge, to innovation, technologies, disruption, right? And AGI, it's really pinged to applicability and pragmatic output for economies and workplace. So it makes a lot of sense for that research arm to stretch its tentacles on all things AGI. And it sounds, I think you hit it on the nail at is safety, ethical, all the aspect that would make AGI an amplifier of humans, right, as opposed to the killer of humans, which everyone thinks as well, right? Love that.
And the last option, which perhaps is the most practical and the one that essentially like you can see how that's going to probably become, and we're seeing that trend, is becoming the lifelong learning platform, right? So transform the 4-year or 2-year degree mill to like this lifetime learning partner. So where you're offering continuous upskilling, reskilling, and human development throughout the person's career, and so on and so forth. So really partner with AI to provide this personalized education at scale. So the institution is not going to go away. It's still going to be part of the community. It's going to create the community, the network, and the value is going to come from that. But you also need a product. You need to deliver a product, right? And the ability for you to come in as humans and to enrich and to upskill at every level of your life cycle, of your lifetime, rather, because you don't get reborn. But like that's kind of an area where, and you're seeing that right now, right? So skills development, very fast courses, degrees that are getting shorter. Community colleges are seeing another boom because they're offering this their business model is a little different, where it's upskilling. And so the idea here is, how do you become a platform for lifelong? But you have to use AI in order to get there, because you cannot operate in mass. You can't have these skills that they can be. You put a class together today, and then you design it because, let's say, 1,000 students need to take it over the next like 2 years. In order for you to recuperate the cost of that development or whatever, that doesn't work that way anymore. So the economics of you delivering personalized education, you can only do that with AI now, both on the management side and both on the design of those skills and courses, and how how you work with industry in order to kind of put those together. So AI can deliver that, right? So the economics of having courses that get repeated over and over again for large amounts of students doesn't work. It has to be personalized at that individual level.
So, artists, I think if I'm hearing you well, and I appreciate you stretching the signals, the anticipation, connecting the dots here, so you kind of AGI this thing a bit, my friend. But your claim here is that potentially 3 future universities emerge: the University of Human Mentors, if you will, this University of the Ethical Guidelines, and the third one, the Lifelong Learning Hub type of universities. And that doesn't mean that they cannot be mutually exclusive. They can combine, but these 3 styles of value props is where it could net.
Yeah.
I buy it. I believe it.
All right. So you walk away from here, you're like, oh man, that's like so futuristic. But let's say, very practical, like what happens in the next 1 year, the next 5 years, and 10 years? I like, we can go briefly through this and then we'll wrap it up, because obviously we can go at this all day, and it's a really, really interesting area here. But so let's kind of paint a picture of how this can unfold, right? So year 1, so we're this year into next year. Basically, you get the AI teammate area. So we're already here, right? AI agents are really joining the workforce as teammates. And they're not just tools. They're scheduling meetings. They're writing reports, deep research. I love that tool. They're analyzing data. Same there, and even making very simple decisions. So when you ask all 3 to reason through like what kind of decision and how it can be really a good thought partner around that. In education, AI tutors and teaching assistants are going to handle routine questions and grading. And schools, institutions that aren't experimenting with AI and integrating that, they're really falling behind already, right? So students are using AI in the classroom, they're using AI outside of the classroom, they're expecting schools and faculty to allow it. They don't care if they're allowing it or not, they're still using it. So the question isn't whether to embrace AI, but how, right? So that's the question for a lot of these institutions. And that's year one. That's the year that we're living in right now until the next 12 months. It's all about agents and how do you incorporate those into the workforce to provide better experience? How do you bring it into the classroom, and so on and so forth? So that's pretty near, right? You're seeing this happening, unfolding right now. Year 5, the hybrid intelligence era. So by 2030, we're saying that we're going to have AGI here, but most knowledge work will be hybrid. So humans and AI agents are working together seamlessly. So whereas next year, we're going to see the introduction and the entry of these, in 5 years, you're going to see the adoption of all of that. And these agents are going to be so good because the AI is going to be so good to reason through, and they're going to we're going to work seamlessly at every single level. So you're going to have, AI managers, you're going to have AI researchers, you're going to have AI, creators. So all of those things, right? And essentially, new job categories will also emerge. So think about AI psychologists who, like, what does that mean? Like they probably understand how to work with like the artificial minds. And it's like, you think about like, where can these AIs feel and think, or do they need to be coerced into doing something? Do they feel tired? Do they feel, we just saw research from Anthropic that they produced where AI, this newest model, tried to, it was in a controlled experiment, but essentially it tried to blackmail one of the researchers because it thought that it was going to change the instructions. And so it was really, really interesting, right? So these jobs can come up, right? And of course, this is just an example, but you can have AI human team coordinators or algorithm auditors. I mean, I don't know, like all of these things, like prompt engineering is something that we thought it was going to be very useful last year, but you're going to have all kinds of new jobs that are going to emerge as part of this. And when you think about it in education, every student is going to have a personalized AI tutor 24/7. So professors then become coaches and mentors rather than information deliverers, right? So think about the relationship that you have with your best professors. It was about like, hey, we discussed things after. It was the coaching, the mentoring, exactly. It's like the experience part and the connection and all that. And then the information it's going to be all AI. And then degrees are definitely going to shift, right? So it's all going to be competency based. We've been talking about this for a long time, but we're really going to see in 5 years that be transformed, because I cannot trust a 4-year degree today, like when we hire somebody, right? Like I can't trust it that degree actually means something today and in the fast moving world. All right. So shall we zoom a little bit more? 10 years?
Wow. Yes, let's do this. What does 2035 look like?
So really, this is where it gets very speculative, right? But it's really important to kind of consider. So if AGI arrives and delivers on its promise, and of course this is from an abundance perspective, right? And I'm kind of in that camp. Well, I'm a little bit more of a skeptic, but I'm in that camp of it's going to become an abundance technology. So we're going to see scientific breakthroughs happen monthly rather than yearly or every other year.
Every decade, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Every decade, we're going to see them happen monthly. So new discoveries are going to become really, really fast. Personalized medicine prevents most diseases. Think about it. Like this is where Larry Ellison is a Stargate. That I remember now. The project Stargate was $600 billion being invested for AI data centers. And Larry Ellison, the founder and CEO of Oracle, like that's really the driver for him to build personalized medicine and personalized cures for cancer and everything else. And the only way you can do that is through AI. So in the next 10 years, just don't die in the next 10 years, right? Just stick around.
Okay.
So stick around for the next 10 years. We're going to see this personalized medicine that prevents most diseases or cures most cancers and diseases as well. We see climate solutions that are implemented at scale, like we kind of start reversing the climate change based on the new scientific discoveries and climate solutions that we have. And then we see economic productivity that makes today's job look like basically look like the Stone Ages, right? It's like, oh man, like I remember, a few years ago when I used to do this thing. It's like imagine how uncool that is now, or basically how primitive it is now. But we can also see the opposite. And this is an area where it's like, is it possible? Yes, the chances are pretty probable as well. So
I was referring to that, right? I was referring to
yeah,
that. So the inequality, the potential inequality of abundance, right?
exactly right. So you have the abundance. Is it going to be an abundance or inequality? I don't know. It's going to be somewhere in between. But when you think about the other side, the inequality era, you think mass unemployment. If we don't figure out this new economic models, AI and development is moving really fast. So I don't know how that's going to affect it. Extreme inequality between those who control the AI and those who don't, which is, think about it, right? You talked about the race to AGI. The race to AGI is because, like, if you have AGI, the the you can build and you can progress so fast to all these discoveries, and they kind of build on top of each other, right? So the people who have AGI and those who don't you're going to have a wider capability range there as well. So you can see really that inequality wide open, even more than we saw, like the inequality happening around like digital connections and people who were connected and had digital access or had internet. So you saw the differences, right? People who had internet and they can actually get better jobs and they can learn better and they can do all these things. And those people who didn't, like you saw that divide. It happened with electricity. It happened with this connection. Well, AGI is actually another area in there. And then the last one could be really loss of human purpose and meaning, which is, you think about it, this is like, oh man, that's demoralizing. It's like, so if machines can do everything better, it's like, what the hell are we good for, right? Like, so look, like, what's education's role in this future?
It's significant.
Yeah, but it might be less about preparing people for jobs and really more about like helping them find meaning and purpose and fulfillment, where machines can handle all the work and education is really that enabler, which, hey, it's not a bad thing, right? That's actually a really good area where you now go back to, I don't know if we should have this discussion because it's kind of romanticizes that notion where you don't have to do any work at all. Like you have a lot of leisure time, but people were just finding, like, they were curious, so they latched on to new ideas and they had intellectual conversations and so on and so forth.
There's a whole body of work on hedonic technologies that, when people don't know, they find uses of pleasure and relaxation, leisure, and my bet is if that even happens, there will be economical values on it. Two things. One, it's there's a world where abundance or inequality emerges, and it looks like this movie Timeless. Justin Timberlake, have you seen it?
Oh yes, yes, yes. Where basically time is the
And
currency.
the new currency, a new economical model, and one of the mental pictures that
It
I
doesn't
left
make
with.
sense, by the way, because in a world like that, it's like you get as much time as you want because the AI has fixed all of the issues, all your diseases, and all that stuff. So.
And then how do I know that to your framing here, if you have abundance or you're rich versus someone who is not, it's the person who is eating a meal really, really in a hurry versus the person who is rich takes her time. Artists, just to go back, I think it's really important summary because I love for you to take us into what do I do with all these things. In this conversation, you have taken us to, I would say, framework of what AG, why is it important, the timeline, what it is, right, and in a way, how it unpacks. How do you impact AGI to make two bold predictions? I'm hearing two predictions: the emergence of three types of universities, and how maybe that's the survival. As I said before, we're looking at the university of the mentors, the university of the stewards of ethics, right? And also the university as the lifelong learning hub. But you also, in a way, have this product roadmap for humanity that I think is a really interesting prediction from your side. So I just want to say the past hour or so looks like this. As a listener, if I'm following, what do I do next? And what is the call to action, if anything, all this conversation that is leading to our predictions? Anything comes to mind?
So, look, I mean, first you got to accept that change is coming faster than you think, right? If anything, what we talked about today, if you took anything out of it, it's like, hey, these things are evolving a lot faster than you think, right? And the change is coming faster. So the comfortable assumption that you have decades to adapt is probably wrong. So you don't have that. So even if AGI skeptics are right, maybe it takes 20 years instead of 5. The narrow AI of today is already reshaping everything that we're doing, right? And then second, like start experimenting now. Like now, not next year, not next semester, but now. So if you're a teacher, try using AI in the classroom. If you're an administrator, pilot AI, adopt AI solutions for a student experience and so on and so forth. If you're a student, learn to work with AI. We talked about that last week. And as a thought partner, and then third, like focus on what makes us human, right? It's like the paradox of AGI is that the more capable machines become, the more valuable and uniquely human qualities become. So empathy, creativity, ethical reasoning, the ability to find
So
meaning,
important. So important.
right? I mean, these are just they're not nice to haves anymore, right? They really become core competencies, and you need to hone those skills.
It's the best time to be a technologist, but also the best time to be a human, right? All these intrinsic values. All right, what else you got?
Build human technology. It's like it's
Oh,
incredible, right? If you think about it.
that's right.
Engage with the big questions, right? It's like you can't just sit on the sidelines. So don't leave the development of AGI to tech companies alone. If you're universities, start thinking about, what steps and thought leaders and ethical guardrails and how you kind of build those and you become honest brokers in the conversation in kind of this future, right? So that's a really interesting area. Universities really must decide whether they'll be kind of leaders or bystanders in this transformation. And, the institutions that are really shaping that human knowledge for the past millennia, like they need to help shape how we think about integration of AI in kind of human society. So the integration part becomes really, really interesting and how you think. And look, I mean, finally, like the future is not fixed, right? So it's like the timelines that we proposed, it might be uncertain, but the urgency isn't.
You don't think you can hold your 2035 prediction?
I mean, I can certainly bet on, like, if you're betting long on certain things, yeah, it's coming, and it depends on where and how it's going to land, but the speed and the acceleration is going to be there. So we're gonna be the ones who decide if it's going to really amplify humans or perhaps replace us at a lot of different jobs and things like that. So the one thing that I want to say is, like, Sam Altman, like he wrote, like even after AGI arrives, like the world mostly goes on in mostly the same way, just accelerated. It's just faster, right? He's like, yeah, maybe AGI comes, but it's not going to be the step change that everybody thought it was going to be. It's like we're already seeing AI accelerate everything that we do. It doesn't matter if it's narrow AI, AGI, whatever. So the conversation that we had today is, what does AGI mean? But it's the capabilities of AI that we now come full circle back again to deliver economic value and be as smart as any human possible. Like that is, the certainty that we're going to get there, and it's just not a step change, but it is a progression. And every single day, you're seeing more and more kind of changes towards that. What do you think?
Very scary.
Hopefully these aren't predictions. These are just like, hey, here's the trajectory and here's how you think about this, and then you make your own decisions.
Fine. I will not call them predictions. Thank you for your inferences.
Here is the trajectory, right? Here's where you should aim somewhere, and then, who knows if you're going to get there or not. This is great. Thanks, JC, for kind of listening to and kind of helping this along. We'll try to do a lot more of these deeper discussions and try to kind of bring our thoughts to the conversation and kind of bring all the what's happening out there, the speed of the technology changes, and then how it affects higher education, how it affects work and knowledge work as well. So we're kind of always thinking about this. And if you have not registered for Engage Summit 2025, you should do that right now. If you're coming in person to Charlotte this year, you're going to hear myself and JC talk more about, AI. But if you can't travel to Charlotte, you should absolutely register to see all of our sessions online. So we'll have a lot of practical sessions. We'll have a lot of sessions that go deeper. We'll have university leaders. We'll have industry leaders. We'll have AI leaders that are kind of building these things right now. And you should kind of absolutely be part of that and kind of absorb all of that information.
And if you like this conversation, on site, artists will be doing a presentation on all things AGI. So these inferences actually get augmented on site. So come listen to his session if you're stopping by and engage. So artists, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful, deep, insightful episode, and more of this to come.
All right. Till next time, everyone. Generation AI is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you're going to like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing weekly, and we've got a wide range of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform that's helping institutions all over the country create meaningful, personalized, and engaging connections with their prospects and students. Learn more at element451.com.